Okay, today I'm reviewing the HAAS Stainless Revo cable rail system. This is sold by e-rigging.com. I believe they make this product. They might be a drop shipper, I'm not 100% sure. I have never done cable railings before, but I did build this entire house myself, which I've also never done before. So I've learned a thing or two in the process. I'm also an electrical engineer and have given myself an honorary mechanical engineering degree. Just from some of the design stuff I've done. I wanted to show you, I haven't installed all the railings yet because we don't have some of the intermediate posts done, but I've installed one little section here. And I'll say that I really like this system with one major caveat that we'll get into. So this system works, it's a crimp system, so you do need to buy their crimper. It's like 120 bucks or something. It works very well, and there's no visible tensioning fittings, which is one of the key selling points to me. I really wanted this to be a really nice, clean system. So what you end up doing is you crimp an end post onto one end of the cable, and then you crimp the actual tensioning fitting onto the other. This goes into the actual 4x4. Do note that this piece that I have as a demo won't work because you can't put the fittings here. There's a fitting on each side of the post, and they won't fit over if you have both pieces on. So you do need to put those on first. So really you have to slide the cable through. Sorry about this. Really you need to slide this cable through, put your two, I call them nipples on, and then you need to crimp the threaded portion on at the end. So that's what I've done here. It's really nice. It's really simple. All you gotta do is drill 3/8 inch holes here. So I love this system in that regard. So for the most part, it's great. However, they have in portions where you have a 4x4, a newel post that runs into a wall like this. This is large enough, but this is just as an example. You can use this fitting here, which actually just screws in. So instead of going all the way through, over here you have the standard setup where at the end of the day you have a bolted that you go through here, and you just tighten this bolt and cut it off. It's got some nice caps that go over it when you're done. So this system is different. It requires a larger drill bit, a 1/2 inch drill bit. And the problem I have with it is that it's really hard in red oak, at least, to manufacture these holes well. I want to show you that. I've done a little bit of tinkering here. This is their lag receiver swage stop is what they call it. And the problem is that if you just drill your 1/2 inch hole, which this is done with a Forstall bit, and I'm actually using a really nice right angle jig to put them in, something I designed myself. Just for a little background, just to show, let me grab it here, it's out of frame. This is the tool that I made specifically to drill these holes. If you see it here, you can see it's got a sliding body on it. You end up clamping this onto a 4x4 post, and then it'll perfectly center drill your holes on this moving gantry here. So you can move up and down like that. So that's how I'm drilling these holes. They are perfectly drilled, perfectly centered, perfectly 90 degrees. The hole is not the problem. The Forstall bit I'm using is 1/2 inch. This one is specifically yeah, 0.501, it's probably 0.5 exactly, just a little bit of measurement error there. So all I'm saying there, these holes are perfectly drilled. Now the problem is this swage stop isn't tapered at all. So when you start to screw this in, it's immediately got this really aggressive profile. And what it does, at least in my case, is it destroys your nice red oak post. You can see that there. And it actually has, once you get it screwed in, it's got this nipple that fits over it here that's supposed to hide any damage, but you can see it can't hide it there. It's too much. It's too big of a hole. So my first thought was, well, they really need a tapping insert. And that tapping insert should be tapered So I've manufactured, I turned this down, and you can see here, I'm going to put it in this caliper here. You can see here that it's been turned down, so the threads at the top here are certainly quite a bit narrower. The diameter is less than they are at the bottom there. And so that was my second attempt, and it's better. There was less damage, but still at the end of the day, when you get the guy in there, you can't cover all the damage. You're going to see some damage. It's harder to see. And if you're doing an outdoor 4x4 thing, this is irrelevant. You don't care. You're not using hardwood at that point. You're just using like a pine or whatever. So what I decided was that I had a couple of problems. First of all, because the swage top doesn't have any half-inch threadless portion, so like on this side they've got a threadless portion. Unfortunately, it's not half an inch. It's that's close enough. It's 0.4966, but there's no way to actually thread it in because you end up using this 3/8 inch Allen wrench to actually screw it in. So ideally, they would have this same extension on the other side so that when you drop it in the hole here, it can't get cockeyed. This is a problem I kept running into, is when I was trying to screw them in, this is exaggerated, but they'd get cockeyed, and then of course they can't follow that half-inch hole you drill, and then of course they rip out. However, even when I get them perfectly straight and screw them in, it still rips them out. So what I ended up doing is making a jig. This is just, it's the width of the post, so you basically end up putting the post into this guy here, like this, and then you clamp it with just a compression clamp around the post. So the post would be standing like this. You've got this guy clamped on. There's a hole right here. That keeps your fitting really, really straight, and it also keeps your fitting from trying to back out as you screw it in. So I have two holes that I did here. One is with just the as-is swage top with no taper on it. And I've labeled that as found here. You can still see that it is still ripping it off because it's a really aggressive profile and it just immediately starts. So then I did another one with this tapered one, and it looks better. And then I did one more iteration where I actually turned this down a little bit more. So I've got a really shallow profile. And that is going to be really, really good. There is some damage, obviously. When that thread first breaks in there, it definitely causes damage. But it is 100% covered once you get the piece in. Once you get this nipple on, you can't see any damage at that point. So here's my thought on it. If you don't have any newel posts that run directly into walls, this system, the HAAS Revo system, is exceptional. It has no exposed tensioning fittings, and I've put 4 different ones in the house. So let me show you some of these here. Here is a simple one here. These are not tensioned yet because I don't have the top portions on. But you basically have on this side just the standard fitting compression. Can't quite see it, but that's not it. You can't tension that side. And then what I've done when I have room is I've actually put the tightening side up against the wall. So you can see that I'll have to tighten these bolts, and then as I tighten them, I'll have to cut them down with a hacksaw as they tighten up. Now, I've got another one over here. Again, I'm waiting on it. This is just a through post. So there's just got nipples on both sides. There's no hardware that goes inside. I've got another one down there that's got the same behavior where the screw studs are actually close to the wall. Obviously, if your newel post is a half newel and it's directly up against the wall, you can't do that. You have to use those swage studs. And as is, I really can't recommend using it for that. So one other problem I have here is that the Revo system doesn't appear to have any option for doing an angled stair swaged stop. So for example, this newel post is at the top of a staircase here, and it has no room behind it. So you can see there's no room there at all. So I have to use a swage stop here. The problem is, this is a 30-degree angle. I think it's 33-degree angle. And their swage stops don't come with a tapered inset. So on their wood post protectors, if you're just going through, they actually have a few different types. They have a transition wood post protector, which is right here. And the transition protector actually has a tapered inset on it so that the cable is not going around a right angle. We'll look at these here in a second. You can see here again, they're tapered as well. So you can see how they have this slight radius on them. And this is one that's not tapered when you're not transitioning. If you're just going horizontally straight through, you don't need a taper. Unfortunately, with their swage end stops, they only come in a straight version. So that's this guy right here. They don't have one that's tapered. So if you look, see if I have any out, if not I can go get some. Here we go. Those are straight, straight. Here's a tapered one. Alrighty, so here's the difference between the two. Again, you can see that one of them is tapered and the other one is straight. And again, these are for the through fittings. If you have an end stop, you can't use these. They're actually quite different. You can see that if we compare those two straight ones, so one of these is for the end stop, the one that has the 4 cuts through it. That is so this fitting can tighten. And you can see that the diameters are different because they need to hide that hole they're threading in there. And that's a little bit annoying too from an aesthetic perspective because you have these ones that are like maybe 5/8 and then the other ones are probably closer to 3/4. I could measure those, but I'm not going to. They're obviously different. So ideally what I'd like to see is an end stop that has a radius on it. So at the end of the day, I really do like this system. It's very clean. I've said it a couple times already, but having no visible tensioning fittings, because the tensioning actually occurs inside the stud as you tighten right here, that's a really slick feature, and certainly other people have it, but this one was done really well. The last thing I wanted to show you is when you have a post that's on a staircase, like this. That's pretty dark. Sorry, got some windows. Let's see this way. So yeah, this post is on a staircase here, and you end up having to put these through fittings, but they're actually angled. Those are really hard to drill. You definitely need a jig for them. Again, I use that machine that I made to do it all, but I don't expect that everyone will have them. So these are just really tough. So just keep in mind that if you're doing newel posts that are on the staircase, it's quite a bit tougher. You don't end up having to do that at the bottom because their system at the tops and bottoms, we'll go to somewhere where the light's not really bad. Their system on the stairs just goes straight through. There are certainly versions that you can get that are angled, but those are really hard to drill, and if you're DIYing it, I spent a long time drilling those holes, even with a nice jig. So I really like this system. I'd like to see them change their end stop fittings so that they maybe have a tapping bit. I've definitely seen, like basically all I've made here is a tapping bit. And I'll say, if you do end up filing these down, just do it to one of them and use that to make the holes, because this stainless steel is incredibly hard. I was really surprised as I was turning it. I was just like, oh, I'll just use a regular file. It destroyed my regular file. So I actually had to go in there and actually turn it properly where I'm not grinding. I had to actually go cut it, which was a project, but story for a different day. So at the end of the day, they really need some kind of tapping device. Typically, you'd have axial slots in this so that the chips you're creating can clear out. I didn't make those because I'm not designing a tool. But if I were designing a tool, I've drawn up here. Again, this is the as found here. They basically got the continuous uniform thread. It's 0.616 inches is what I measured here, the outer diameter of the thread. And what I'm proposing is more like this here, where they actually taper down And that's exactly what I've done here. So that, and then adding an 1/8 of an inch of through clearance there. That way you can go into the hole and be straight without having to have a jig. So that's kind of my feedback. I really like the system. I did purchase it during COVID, and it did take a couple months to arrive, but I really can't fault e-rigging for that. I will say I've been a little bit disappointed in e-rigging's customer support. Even when I was waiting for the order, it would take a week to get a response from them, just saying, "Hey, what's up with my order?" And then finally, when I called them like 2 months later, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the parts are in, but your credit card, the transaction took so long that it was declined or whatever." I had to give them my credit card information again, but it just would have been nice for them to call me because I'm not necessarily under a schedule on this. Again, this is a house I'm building myself, so I don't have any contractors breathing down my neck or a bank telling me I need to do X, Y, or Z. I can imagine, though, that if you're doing this professionally and e-rigging just kind of ghosts you for 2 months, that could be pretty annoying. I had other things to do, but it was just, I don't know. And then, again, I've emailed e-rigging a couple more times, just asking them questions. Nothing even really technical. This is the first time I'll let on that I have a technical thing that I'd like them to change, but I asked them questions about whether or not they offered this in-stop fitting and, with a radius, with a chamfered radius on it. And that was like 3 weeks ago, and I still haven't heard anything back from them. So I love this system, and certainly e-rigging has some room for improvement. Again, I think this HAAS design is entirely their design, and it's very clean, and they've done a very good job on their website explaining to a new user. This is the problem as I was going to other places. I was just getting overwhelmed because there's a lot of ways you can do this, and a lot of these companies, they haven't held your hand at all. And it's just like, here's this, or whatever. With e-rigging, it's really nice, actually. When you go on their website, it shows you all of the the various ways. How are you doing this? And they even have, if you are an expert, they have a button there that says, "I know what I'm doing. Just take me to the parts." It's first thing on there, and it's great. But if you don't know what you're doing, they actually have a really good explanation. I'm going through, I'm reading it. They've got some great YouTube videos, how to use their crimping tool, or the swaging tool, or whatever. It's a crimper. I will say this swaging tool, it takes some muscle. When you first get it, note that it doesn't close all the way. You actually have to come in here to tighten it. And when you first get it, until it's loosened up a bit, it's quite a bit harder. Another thing I learned, cutting their cable does require cable cutters. I just bought some hand cutters, like a journeyman's cutter. I was like, oh yeah, this will cut stainless steel. No, it will not. You absolutely need a gigantic cutter to cut their cable. I am using their 3/16 inch cable. I really, really do like it. I didn't realize how much larger that was than the 1/8 inch. If you actually take their 3/16 inch cable, because it's a 1x17, if you take their 3/16 inch cable here, and you take the outer layer of this stranded cable off, you will get the 1/8 inch that they sell. So anyway, I like the 3/16. Sorry, I've got something in my eye. It works. It looks really good. I'm definitely, I'm at a point where I have solved this problem, but as far as just being a casual customer buying it, I can't recommend using their system right now if you have any newel posts that run into the walls, because when you need this swaged in-stop, this is just not good. This needs a redo, and I would love to look and update this and say, hey, look, they've come out with this new, better thing. But as it is right now, if you have any newel posts that run into walls, I don't recommend using the e-rigging HAAS stainless steel system. I'm certainly going to be able to do it, but it took me making my own jig, me turning my own tapping bit, and then on the staircases, as I mentioned, they don't have a solution at all, so I'm going to have to actually turn a radius onto this end cap. So certainly if you have a newel post on a staircase that runs into a wall, it's typically called a half newel, then certainly I don't recommend this system because they don't have a tapered in-stop nipple that will go in there. So anyway, I mean, overall, I'm very, very impressed with the system. I just don't like their in-stock fittings. That's basically all it boils down to. They really need to redesign that, or make some kind of threading drill bit, basically. If you could do, let me find it. I've dropped it. If you could do this and actually make that 1/8 inch, 0.495 or whatever diameter with no thread, and then have a very casual thread that starts up and is super sharp, then you wouldn't need to make this jig, and you could just hand screw those in or use whatever you're wanting. And then also, if you're doing this outside and you're just using a 4x4 treated post or whatever, one, I don't know why you're using eRigging's HAAS system. This is a very high-end, and that means very, very expensive cable railing solution. You are paying a ton. What I've shown you here, I think was $1,400 if I had to guess, and that's just for cables and fittings. And granted, there's a ton of them. I have this right angle post right here that I'm pointing to right there. If you have two 90-degree posts and you're doing the tensioning fittings at that post, you're going to have 100 pieces of hardware in a residential setup with 10 cables. If you have 11 cables or 13 cables or whatever, I mean, you can have 130 pieces of hardware in a single post. And each one of those pieces of hardware is like more than $1. So obviously it adds up. At the end of the day, their system is very expensive, but not for a high-end system. There were certainly other high-end cable systems that were more expensive and looked a lot worse. I really liked that this system has no visible tensioning. And if these cables get loose in the future, you can just unscrew the end caps and tighten them again. Let me show you that, because I know I've kind of just glossed through it here. So it's going to take me a second. And they show this on their website. So just my one little final note, this is what I really like about this system. Almost there. So you end up sticking this through the post. So do I have any of these with holes all the way through? Maybe this. Maybe? Yeah, there we go. Okay, here's one here. So you end up sticking this through your post like that, and then you put this cap over it like that, and then you screw this screw on it like this, and then you cut the end of this off, and let's just say I've cut the end of it off. I'm just going to back it out a little bit. At the end of the day, all I have to do is take this end cap here and screw it over the top. But you got to cut that all the way flush, I've just learned. So now you've got this end cap on there, and it looks fantastic. It looks just like the other side, which is just a solid crimp. And in the future, if the cable gets loose, you can just unscrew the end cap. Remember which sides they're on. You can just tighten it more and then screw it back on. The one thing I will note is that when you're tightening this, they want you to grab this thread with like a vice grip so that the cable doesn't spin. If the cable spins and then loosens later, the actual cable railing is going to get loose again. So once you've cut this tip off, it is going to be a little bit harder to tension the cable, but obviously if the cable's gotten loose, you're just trying to tighten it anyway. So anyway, I really like that. And then, of course, just the amount of tightening range you have. On a standard 4x4 post, you end up having like 4 inches maybe. I don't know, it's probably 4 inches of tightening thread, which is really, really nice if you have kids hanging on your cable railings, which obviously that's not ideal. You don't want people doing that, but it's bound to happen, particularly in like a commercial application. So anyway, I love this system. I want to recommend it. I cannot recommend it if you have in-stop fittings. And that's again where the newel, you have a half newel post that's running into a wall, or a full newel post like I have here. We did full posts everywhere. So yeah, hopefully they can get a redesign there. Hopefully I can get them to reply to my emails. I'm of course going to send them this video, and of course it's going to be online. If in the future they do change their in-stock fitting or they add some kind of tapping bit, I would love to update this video to show it. But as it is right now, it's very difficult to use, and I had to use a lathe, cutting tools, a custom jig, and then this custom jig as well to actually get these to drill in without ripping the face of your wood off. So yeah, that's the problem. Hopefully it's improved. Please, e-rigging, I love it. You need to make this part better, or at least caveat that if you have these end-stop fittings, um, that maybe your system doesn't work. Fix it. Uh, but yeah, no, it's great. I'm super excited with them. I know I've said that 50 times now or whatever. Uh, yeah, that's all I have. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.